So when you're tracing your circles onto your paper, you want to think about the fact that the eye likes variety. Don't keep them all the same size. That's boring. And you also want to create some depth. So if you change the size of your circles, it's going to create some depth in your drawing. Now, when you're doing this, you also want to think about balance. So if I had this and I had placed all the big circles up towards the left-hand side, and then I had placed all the smaller circles down here, I would have to do a lot of small circles to balance out those big circles here. So here's an example. So for example, this one here. I made sure I placed a circle throughout the whole paper to help my eye move around, but this one is so big, it's going to take up so much weight on that paper that it doesn't really balance these ones out. So on this one, I did do a bunch of different size circles, but I really balanced them out nicely and I made sure the weight was equally distributed. Now, try your best to do that now. You might put your lines in your designs and then realize later, you know what, it's not really balanced. I might want to add a couple more circles. So as you're doing this, have some circles that overlap other circles, like in mine too. That's going to create some space. And I want you also, as you're doing this, I want you to think about how you're going to put the design on here. So remember what we discussed earlier, you need to have value and you also need to have form. So as you're putting your designs on these circles, think about how you're going to create form in these. So for example, if I was to do, maybe I want to do some like bumpy designs in one of these. So I'm going to grab a pencil and I'm going to use this lightly to help get me started. So maybe in this one here, I want to do a light X in the middle, just like this. So I can create some curves on each side. So I'm going to do a bumpy side, and I want to think about that example I did in my practice where I made sure my lines were kind of curved. So they're a little more in towards the center, but then they poof out towards the edge. And I'm going to do another one here. And again, I'm going to poof them out a little bit more on the edge, but then start to come in towards that center. Then I'm going to go to this side and do the same thing. And as you can see, now it's in a way kind of made it rounded. Now, don't outline these circles either. Wait to do that till later and decide which ones you want to outline and which ones you don't, because whatever circles you outline are probably going to be the ones that really stick out to us. I might want to go in and maybe now do just like a bump in the center. So, as you can see, by just slightly curving the lines a little bit, I was able to get some form. Now, here's what it would look like if I didn't do that. You can see maybe there's a little bit of form because I used bumpies, but there's a huge difference. This one appears more flat than this one. All right, so I'm just going to leave that for now. Now maybe in this one, I don't know, this one goes off the page, so think about doing a couple of those too to fill up the page. So, I don't know, maybe now on this one, I just want to do some cool, just regular curved ones. I really liked the example, so maybe I want to do one like I did in the practice. Okay. Now I'm not really adding any value now. I'll decide to do that a little later. I'm just going in and doing very basic, simple designs. All right, so now, I don't know, maybe in this one, I want to do something like a zigzag that kind of curves around that circle. Maybe I want some that curve around like this. So think about how can you make your lines in a way kind of look curved. So I've gone in, I made sure I curved my eyes with the form. Any forms that I wanted looking front on to me, I made sure I followed that example that we did in the handout. Okay, and now I have some really cool designs in here. So I'm going to start to outline any circles that I want to have outlined. Okay, and maybe some I don't want to outline. I just want to keep them as they are. Okay, so now I need to start thinking about how I'm going to fill these in. Do I want to add more details and designs? Where would I like to incorporate some value? You can use any of the value techniques that we learned about in class, so it's up to you which ones you use. So for example, maybe in here I want to do some cool pattern to break the space up a little more. And then maybe break it up and do, I don't know, some kind of weird curly patterns in here. Okay? And then at this point, so I have a lot of empty space, but I know I have to incorporate value. So maybe now I want to do some stippling. Okay, so I'm going to continue to keep adding maybe some values. You want to have enough space in your design so that when you do add these values, you're not trying to work in a really tiny area. So I like to go back and forth, do some more intricate design. So maybe here, I'll do some scumbling. And remember, the farther away they get apart and the less you push on that pen, the lighter the value is going to look. You want to make sure you have a nice range of dark to light. So you should have at least one mid-tone in between your dark to light. The more you have, the better. I do like to personally outline the circles that are on top of other circles behind it because it does create some extra depth. So you also might want to think about that as you're working on these. So obviously, if you look at the detail in this one, it's not complete in comparison to the final. But I want to get you started on some different ideas and to be thinking about what you should be working on as you're focusing on these. So the first thing is think about how you're filling up the space and adding variety by using different sizes along with depth, different size circles. Second thing you need to think about is how you're going to do the directions of your line to make your form look curved. So in some ways you're going to want to make sure that you're curving those lines around your sphere as you're working. After you've gone in, you've done the basic lines, then you're going to go in and you're going to add some more patterns or details and also think about how you're going to incorporate value. So again, you might, after you've done this and you finish early, decide to do some more circles. So I probably would on mine continue to add some more circles, and I'd probably continue to add some more detail in this one here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I know that's a lot at once. I will do the second video on what the next step is in a couple of days.